I'm Jason Aponte. That's Brian Peacock. We are going to give keys to a victory. The 49ers have not won in Minnesota since 1992. How do they make that streak stop? Stick around right after this.
Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.
I'm Jason Aponte. That's Brian Peacock. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on both channels. We are simulcasting on my channel and Brian Peacock's channel. Brian, before we get into anything football related, how are you? And how was your first week of football?
I thoroughly enjoyed my first week of football. That was fun. The big 49ers win, beat up on the New York Jets. A lot of bad football around the NFL. I think we're going to talk about one of those teams that looked bad, and it was the Minnesota Vikings opponent in week one. In your hood, a lot of people force you to watch those games, and man, the New York Giants are a fun team to watch. So I feel for you on that, but man, I love it. It's back. It's football, and then the weeks start happening so fast, and this week even a little bit shorter. So it's like it's Monday Night Football. All of a sudden, we're back here. It's Thursday, and there's another game, Bills and Dolphins. I can't wait to watch right now, and then get a little Niners Vikings on Sunday. I'm pumped for it.
You know, it's funny. Everybody talks about players in short weeks and what that does for their bodies. Have you guys ever thought about us content creators and what happens on short weeks?
I started to feel it in my Achilles this week. I got tendonitis this week because it all came so fast.
Too soon. Fine. Since you want to be like that, let's start like that, Brian. Okay, so Christian McCaffrey, Achilles tendonitis, did not play on Monday Night Football, upset a bunch of people and sent them into a tizzy for absolutely no reason because of gambling and my fantasy team. Nobody cares. They're in the business of winning football games. But Achilles tendonitis, obviously not playing. And he said he thought, Kyle Shanahan said, you know, if it was a playoff game, he would have played. A limited practice last 2 days. Tomorrow's going to be your money day to figure out what's going to happen with Christian McCaffrey. What are your thoughts when you hear Achilles tendonitis?
I don't like anything to deal with the Achilles. I know you talked to Dr. Pandya last week, right? Did he give you the rundown on the Achilles? Because I did see his Twitter rundown on it, and it was like it made me feel better about it and worse about it at the same time, if that's possible. Because there were 4 bullet points. One was it does lead to a possibility of a rupture if you have Achilles tendonitis. Makes it more likely, but it's only in about 4 to 10% of patients with Achilles tendonitis that actually rupture their Achilles. And then then there's some other data points, and then the very last one is like, and the way to avoid having a chronic change to your tendon is to rest and not have a workload. And I'm like, well, NFL running back's about the highest workload you can put on an Achilles tendon. So I'm worried about the chronic nature of Christian McCaffrey's tendon right now.
Yeah, and the timeline of this is the part that I think if you're concerned, this is why you should be concerned. So this injury pops up in the Washington game, week 17. The 49ers finished with the number 1 spot. He doesn't play in week 18, and you think, okay, well, he doesn't need to play week 18, and he'll have a bye week, and they'll go into the playoffs. Funny enough, I did some research on my own. And this isn't to scare anybody. This is just literally what we were talking about. And Dr. Pandya was saying all of those things about, you have to manage it. You have to go to therapy. There's a lot of work that goes into all of that, right? Did a little research of my own. And Dre Greenlaw was out of the week 18 game with Achilles tendonitis. Now, the only things that are the same between the two players is the diagnosis. Meaning, Achilles tendonitis doesn't mean a rupture is on the way. That depends on case to case. It doesn't mean that I have any details on the case. It doesn't mean that anybody has any details to say that it's any different than Dre Greenlaw's injury. But the article that I found that I wrote about on Niners Nation and I used some of his data points was how and what would be the reason for a rupture. And he pointed to Dre Greenlaw's, unfortunate injury in the Super Bowl as a degeneration of the Achilles. Do we think that that's what's going on with Christian McCaffrey? We have no idea. But there's plenty of cases with Achilles tendonitis where it doesn't end that way. I think us as 49er fans are just a little scarred when we hear those words because it is the same exact thing that Dre Greenlaw was diagnosed with.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. One is something we brought up on the latest Locked On 49ers, which, by the way, we're going to air after Thursday Night Football. So we're kind of leading you into Thursday Night Football here
Nice.
with Aponte, me and Croc. We're going to take you out after Thursday Night Football and our keys to victory there, talking a little bit about this and some of the same subjects on the 49ers and Vikings. And the thing that we immediately thought of is like, well, wait a second. If McCaffrey's been dealing with this since week 17 of last year, is it already a chronic problem? Has there already been a chronic change to his tendon? And if that's the case, I mean, that's a kind of a career-altering thing. And is this something that Christian McCaffrey's always going to deal with? So that's one of the worries that I have. And if it's not chronic yet, let's not make it chronic. So that's why I lean toward resting Christian McCaffrey. And I'm interested to hear what you think about it. And part of it, just naturally, and this shouldn't be a factor, but part of it is you see how good Jordan Mason looked and how well they run the ball. And it's like, okay, we're cool. Like, let's chill out on this. Before week one, it'd be like, oh man, we really hope Christian McCaffrey's out there. And a lot of people were. I had a really good suspicion that I didn't expect 147 yards, but I thought Jordan Mason looked really good with 20 carries. By the way, does he need 28 carries or you get him or two, Jason? How about mixing in a little Isaac Garendo? You drafted him in the 4th round. Didn't they even trade up a couple spots for Garendo? I can't remember. But what was the other thing? I can't even remember what the other thing was now. But basically, yeah, let's rest Christian McCaffrey and make sure he's as close to, even if not 100%, close enough to a place where you're not putting him in danger of getting hurt worse.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the diagnosis scares you. I don't know the details, so I'm not going to completely, go crazy. But my first thought is if Christian McCaffrey misses against the Jets and you can't beat them with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Mason, then we've got a bigger conversation to have. And it feels like short week, travel, turf in Minnesota. I don't know I'm not a doctor either. I'm not somebody who's saying that turf can contribute or not, but turf. And if you can't beat the Minnesota Vikings with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, then we've got a bigger conversation to have because Jordan Mason can be just fine.
I just remember what the other thing was. Wasn't Dre Greenlaw's Achilles tendonitis in the opposite leg than the Achilles that he popped?
Really?
I think so.
I mean, the article that I read was basically talking about like how it happened, and it really didn't make any mention of the Achilles tendonitis. So that might be that's pretty interesting.
Well, and that's one of the things that happens is not just Achilles tendonitis, but with any injuries, and that happened to me. I had a bad knee, and then you start limping and doing other things, and now all of a sudden your left hip hurts because your right knee was messed up, and then now you're walking weird and running weird and moving weird. And so that's one of the things that can happen is you put more pressure on other parts of your body because you are trying to favor the injured area, and then you can get hurt in another spot too. So there's a lot of reasons, not just the tendon, the Achilles that's having the problems.
Gut feeling, even after Christian McCaffrey says, I'm preparing to play Thursday, September 12th, 7:23 Eastern time, 4:23 Pacific time. Does Christian McCaffrey go on Sunday?
I'm going to say he plays.
Okay. I hope he doesn't.
I hope
not just from my fantasy team though.
We won't really know until Friday if he gets
tomorrow's the Monday.
Like, man, if he's limited on Thursday and he's got this problem that's been going on for a long time, is he really going to be that much better in a day? So I thought he was going to play last week and he didn't though. So it's going to be a game time decision. Probably we'll find out. And if there's any doubt, you got to lean toward letting him sit one more week.
And you know what? Think about it again. Week 3, Los Angeles Rams on turf. Week 4 is when you get back to your grass. I mean, this all has to be a part of the thought process. And if for anybody, Kyle Shanahan was asked, is IR even a possibility? He said, no, it's not. I wonder if that's more about roster gymnastics than it is severity of the injury with the designated to return IR spots, how that works. Again, that there's a lot of weird ways that can be manipulated and how many spots you can actually designate to come back. But yeah, I'm going to say I hope he doesn't. I don't think the 49ers need Christian McCaffrey to beat the Minnesota Vikings, in particular with Sam Darnold as quarterback.
I think the reason he plays is because if he's got a chance to get on the field, he's going to say he's ready to go. And you know, because that's just how he is. Kyle Shanahan's never one to hold people back. If the medical staff says, yeah, okay, I think he can probably go. And if he says he's not in pain, too much pain, then he could probably play. And then Kyle's going to be like, okay, cool. Here's the ball 25 times. That's just kind of how Kyle is. It's kind of how Christian McCaffrey is. So you kind of got to save these guys from themselves a little bit. And the fact that Kyle said that that he would play if it was a playoff game. I don't think he's going to think that the Vikings week 2 game is a playoff game necessarily, but it just goes to show you that Christian McCaffrey's in a place where he could play and he's close enough. And so that's what leads me to think that he probably will end up playing. And I just hope it's not too soon.
Yeah. So, I mean, that feels like the only real, I guess, concern coming out of this blowout win on Monday, in which everybody just, the 49ers just pushed the Jets completely around, right? And even Trent Williams comes back and he just looks as dominant, depending on who you ask, whether it's PFF or Next Gen Stats. He either allowed 0 pressures or 1. Either way, that's very good. You know, and then Jordan Mason gets the most amount of carries in a Kyle Shanahan era. That is probably one of the most surprising stats from that game.
That is pretty surprising. And he's the type of back that can do that. But you don't want to break him down. You know, getting 28 carries in a game is a lot. I'm sure he was getting all kinds of treatment because he hasn't gotten touches like that since he was at Georgia Tech. Right. And that was before Jahmyr Gibbs showed up. So that was like when he was a sophomore at Georgia Tech too, or a freshman, or whatever it was. And so with Jordan Mason or Chris McCaffrey, whoever's in there, yeah, let's be smart about it. And when you're able to run all over a team, it just means that you can run more. Actually, you know what's funny? One of the most telling things, like this is the most Kyle Shanahan thing. And people think that, oh, it's going to be the post whoever era. It's going to be the Brock Purdy era. The 49ers are going to lean into the passing game, start throwing more. The locker room speech after the game, do you know what the first thing that Kyle Shanahan said to his team was? We got 37 runs, guys. He didn't even say we won the game. He said we got to run it 37 times, guys. And everyone cheered, like, yay.
Well, I think it's because if you run the football 37 times, you've won. You've won, right? Like, I mean, unless you just have a quarterback who can't. Like, yeah, I guess that's what he meant. But that's pretty funny. I didn't know that. Like, of course that's what he's hanging his hat on, as opposed to like, hey, I beat one of my tree, and you know, and Aaron Rodgers again. That's what he's putting his hat on.
It's funny because every time there's a game, you hear the announcers who talk to Kyle Shanahan, and he clearly tells them this. They always say, whether it's Tim Ryan on the radio or you know, whoever it is that's broadcasting the game, and listen for it against the Vikings on Sunday. I'm sure we'll hear it. Like, well, Kyle Shanahan always wants to try to get 30 to 40 runs in a game, you know, because that's what he wants. So he tells the people that, and like that's a good sign if he's able to run the ball 37 times or more. And 28 of those were from Jordan Mason, and then maybe even too many for Debo because it wasn't that effective.
Right, 8, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think teams really key on Debo with the wide back stuff. They need to, I don't know,
vary it.
I guess what would probably throw teams off is you put Debo back there more and don't hand him the ball. Whether you throw him the ball, let him run a route out of the backfield, you end up doing something else, or you just pass out of that formation. Because it seems like teams really key on it when Debo's in the backfield, and the wide back stuff hasn't worked that great, off and on since Mike McDaniel left and since that crazy 2021 season.
And I kind of was interested in the little wrinkles that I was seeing in the run game, in which you would kind of see Debo move a little bit to the left or right of Brock Purdy, not line up right behind him, almost to like create another angle in the run game. I wonder if that was just a 1 week trying to figure out the timing of that type of stuff, and more. Maybe we'll see more of that, and it may be more effective.
Yeah, some of it you mean because like he'll do like a little motion.
Yeah, or no, well, less than that. He'll just line up a little bit further off, closer to a tackle, and it'll look like when he takes the ball, he's going to take it from there and try to get like an extra angle. And now that we know we can run the football to the right side, all of a sudden, shout out to Dominic Pooney. I wonder if maybe that was just a little bit of a 1 week thing where they've added this wrinkle, and they're still like, that's my biggest takeaway from week 1 is, sure, the 49ers pushed the Jets around, but they're still like nowhere near where they need to be. There was so much more left on the field in that game, and I think they're still finding their way.
It was huge. That was the best part of week one is there's no Christian McCaffrey, no Talanoa Hufanga. Trent Williams had to get an IV in the fourth quarter. That might have been part of the reason they ran the ball to the right more, is to take pressure off of Trent Williams. But it was effective. I mean, Pooney looks like the real deal. I thought Colton McKivitz, played a pretty good game as well.
Fine.
Brandon Ayuk not at full strength. He dropped a touchdown. They had to kick 6 field goals. They still scored 32 points. They should have scored 40 plus. And they don't have all their players yet. And even some of the players they have aren't 100% on the field yet. So like this team destroyed a team that was supposed to be pretty good coming into the year. That's a well-respected team with a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And they're not even hitting on all cylinders yet. So that was probably the best part of week one, seeing it go down like that in dominating fashion, and they're not hitting their stride yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, let's turn the page on that game. I think everybody's anxious to talk about what's going to happen in week 2. As I said, 1992, the last time the San Francisco 49ers beat Minnesota in Minnesota, I was the ripe old age of 8 or turning 8 that year, depending on when that game was, because I'm a November baby, so the game could have happened in December. I could have just turned 8. That's how long it's been. Brian, I'm going to start with my favorite narrative of any football game in the history of football that is a good talking point, revenge game. And Sam Darnold. Hey, old friend. And Kyle Shanahan was asked about Sam Darnold. And he cannot stop himself from praising Sam Darnold. He cannot stop himself from gushing about him. It seems like there's players on his team that have done far more in the league that he just gives generic quotes on, but he always goes out of his way to make sure he gives Sam Darnold some love. And he says, I almost wish he didn't sign somewhere else because I wanted him to come back here. I'm happy for him. I think he's a starting quarterback in the league. But Sam Darnold did play the New York Giants, and he started that game 12 for 12, Brian Peacock. And I had to hear a lot of Giants fans really, really get upset at the bar. Kind of funny, but it was really harder to watch that game more than anything. A lot of short game. A lot of Kevin O'Connell style offense. Like Kevin O'Connell's a good coach, and he's a good coach for quarterbacks. He understands exactly how to play to his quarterbacks, especially being a former quarterback and former Rams coach. Are we nervous that Sam Darnold is going to do the impossible on this Sunday and keep the streak going?
Another note on Sam Darnold, the greatest thrower of the football in Minnesota Vikings history, too.
Well, I mean, the only reason he wasn't for the Niners is because Steve Young and Joe Montana exist.
So Sam Darnold, they kind of played it close to the vest, got the ball out quickly and got a rhythm going early with that, even turned down some bigger throws potentially. And he can make big throws. Like he's always had the talent. So I'm really interested in Sam Darnold. I think he's a better player than we saw early in his career with the Jets, obviously. Awful situation. He's in so much better situation in the last 2 years, great coaches, and more weapons. He's got the best receiver, top 2 receiver in the NFL right now in Justin Jefferson to throw to. Now, maybe not a lot of other weapons besides that. So I don't know if you just go ham on Justin Jefferson and just bracket him, double him, whatever, and say, go ahead, Naylor, Jesse Naylor, whatever his name is, go beat us. Aaron Jones out of the backfield maybe is the second best passing weapon because Addison is not practicing this week, might not play.
Probably not playing.
They don't have a lot of. Trent Sherfield might be one of their top 3 receivers in this game. And we know him well, and he's always good for like one play a game.
More revenge game.
Yeah, and I like Trent Sherfield, but that's obviously not going to scare you. So this really, on paper, looks like a game the 49ers should win. And we'll see if they're able to pressure Sam Darnold into some of those old mistakes that we've seen, because it's not that long ago that he was making mistakes. The first pass he ever threw for the 49ers was in the chest of a defender. People forget this. And, he settled down after that, but it wasn't intercepted, but it could have been. And so that's like, oh, there's Sam Darnold. Okay. And he looks so good in practice and he can throw the ball and he's athletic. And then it's like, oh, he threw it to the wrong team. And he settled down in that game. And then, if you go back to his really good season, how he ended the year with the Carolina Panthers the year before he came to the Niners, go watch that last game. Go watch the end of the game. One of the ugliest turnovers you'll ever see from Sam Darnold. So to me, one of the keys to this game is still making Sam Darnold look like old Sam Darnold and throw the ball to the wrong team and see ghosts and bring pressure on him. And the 49ers didn't really pressure Aaron Rodgers a lot. They were fantastic up front against the run, but only got to Rodgers a couple of times. I think one of the keys here, let's go after Sam Darnold, make him make some mistakes, because really the only way I can see the Minnesota Vikings coming out of this on top, because I think the 49ers are a better team top to bottom, is if they somehow win the turnover battle. And so let's make sure that they don't do that, and let's get some turnovers from Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and what's funny is the way that I'm viewing this game is Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd were the two guys that got the most pressure, right? And they combined for, I think it was like 9 of the 11 pressures, and Floyd looks like the veteran with the great motor. The first play of the game, he's blowing up a run and everything. But I think this game might be the inverse because of Christian Darrisaw and O'Neal. They have 2 very good tackles. It's the interior that you really got to push around, and Dexter Lawrence was doing an incredible job of exploiting that. Just some quick numbers. Ed Ingram, their guard, 9.3 pass blocking grade, not good. Center Garrett Bradbury, 26.8 pass blocking grade, ungood. And they combined for 10 pressures and a sack.
9.3 out of 10 or 9.3 out of 100?
9.3 out of 100.
Out of 100, okay.
Yes. Dexter Lawrence is a premier interior defender. Let's make sure that we highlight that. But this has to be a game for Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins, because I think that Darrisaw and O'Neal are better than everyone else on this offensive line. Not that Bosa and Floyd are not going to get their shots, but it's got to come up from straight the middle just with these two guys, man. It just has to be their game.
Yeah, and show some looks. Throw some blitzes in there. Some Yetur Gross-Matos back on the practice field Thursday.
That's great.
So get him maybe, get a little turbo package in there. Get him on the interior maybe rushing. Some games where you get Bosa and Floyd coming around through the middle as well. So yeah, but whatever you got to do, get some pressure on Sam Darnold. Got to collect some turnovers there.
Yeah, he's absolutely still going to throw you the football. He threw one against the Giants. It wasn't necessarily his fault, but somehow it happens, right? So obviously Addison's not going to play in this game. Hawkinson not there. Josh Oliver is the guy who catches the touchdown from him. You're right. Like, he turned down some throws, made some really nice ones. Justin Jefferson is still going to be the focal point. I wonder how that works. Does Mooney Ward travel? Everything as well, too. But I think the way it starts, and for most games we can say this, the way it starts and ends is the defensive line, and I think it's going to be the interior guys. This has to be a big Javon Hargrave game, because he was largely not – they weren't saying his name. Let's just say that. They weren't saying his name on Monday Night Football, and he gets paid too much to have his name not said a few times every game.
I feel like the game plan was to – and this might have been a big offseason thing. This might have been like Kyle Shanahan and Nick Sorensen, and maybe even before they even hired Sorensen, and going through all of the candidates to be a defensive coordinator. I think Kyle wanted the run fits to be a little bit better than they were last year. And I have a feeling Monday Night Football was kind of showing us that the 49ers were like, look, we're going to stop the run first. And so we like to get upfield and we like to be aggressive, but we're not going to just abandon assignments and get blocked out of the way and allow huge holes in the running game. So I think there was a premium put on stopping the run. And I think we saw that from their pass rush plans, kind of a, play the run on the way to the quarterback sort of a thing. And maybe you can cut loose a little bit more in week 2, but you still got to stop the run. And so, and that was one of the things I loved from, and by the way, so speaking of Nick Sorensen, speaking of the defense, how different it looked a little bit. And we go into this in a little bit more detail on the Locked On 49ers that will air after Thursday Night Football about some of the coverage stuff. But they ran cover 1 a lot, and 3 times more than they did last year. And it was one game, maybe it was game plan specific, but the 49ers really played less zone, more man, leaned into their coverage guys, Deommodore Lenoir and Ward and Yadam. And I think maybe that's something that might stick a little bit this year, and just a little more man, a little more trust in their guys to cover up receivers on the other team, and less zone. And I don't know, and maybe an extra guy in the box even with that cover 1 too to stop the run. So that's kind of what we saw on Monday Night Football. I don't know how sticky that is from week to week, how much that might change because it's only one game, but it was different than last year.
I think that's my takeaway, Brian, is I think the adjustments came quicker from the defensive side. Like it didn't take a whole half for Steve Wilkes to go into the room, get yelled at by Kyle, and then change everything. Yeah. Sorensen saw early on that Rodgers is obviously getting the ball out quickly. We're not getting there. The zone's not going to work. They are finding the spots. Now let's switch it. And I do think it's going to be week to week because that can work with someone else that's not as good with the football, and getting it out as well too. So it is going to be week to week. But I think the overarching takeaway and something that we're talking early returns in week one, right? Like no sweeping statements, but the adjustments came pretty quickly after like a drive or two where Sorensen said, all right, this isn't working. We're done. Have you ever watched the 49ers game where you're like, why? What? Why? Why is this still happening? And then all of a sudden it changes at half. Doing it on the fly, I think, is something that's really good. And I think, hold on to your hats, 49ers fans. I think Brandon Staley has a little bit to do with that as well, too. But don't tell anybody.
I didn't hear what you said. Did you say something about the eye in the sky and Brandon Staley, though?
Oh, no, but Brandon Staley being here, Brian, is bringing his losing ways over here. How could you do that? What if the tandem of the both of them and his defensive mind, Staley's helping him make adjustments because Staley's really good with the secondary.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thought.
He's definitely smart. Maybe he's not a good head coach. And you know who
he's not a good head coach.
You know who's a good head coach? Jim Harbaugh, who replaced him and already has changed that entire that entire program around.
They won a close game. They didn't even give it away. Like what the hell was that, Chargers?
You know what I thought Brandon Staley might bring was his aggressiveness with the data and the go for it on fourth down stuff. And Kyle still before the half, or no, wait, it wasn't before the half. It was it before the half? When was it where Kyle was like,
yeah,
2-score game?
He just hit the field goal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, oh, take a field goal, and it's still a 2-score game.
Could have stepped on their neck a little bit there. I want to see, like, come on, pedal to the metal a little bit. Come on. No, but I do think that the Sorensen Staley thing is it's again week one, but the adjustments came quicker. And that's what Staley's doing up there, right? Like Staley and Sorensen are talking to each other. And I thought it was such a cool nugget that I think it kind of flew over everyone's head. Kawakami dropped that the reason that Kyle Shanahan was allowing Clint Kubiak to call plays in the preseason is so he could sit in and listen in on Nick Sorensen's calls. That is growth from Kyle Shanahan. When we're all asking, how can he improve as a coach? He's giving away his play calling duty to listen in on what's going on in the defense because he had to be too involved last season. He wanted to make sure that stuff was going right this year.
You know, the whole 1992 thing, not beating the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, and obviously the Niners didn't have a good one against the Minnesota Vikings last year. Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel didn't play in that game.
They didn't.
They're playing this time.
Right.
It's a
That's what I'm saying.
Different squad. Like I just like everything better about where the 49ers are right now than where they were in that weird 3-game skid last year.
And even that game, right? Because you could say, hey, Trent and Deebo didn't play. Well, Justin Jefferson didn't play for them either. And Kirk Cousins won a primetime game against the San Francisco 49ers. There's a lot of things going against them as well, too. And they couldn't run the football for all hell, Minnesota. First run from Alexander Madison, 57 yards. Like the guy, he could, and then Christian McCaffrey fumbles. You get missed field goals. You turn the football over. You have that horrible play call at the end of the half with Steve Wilkes and that cover. This is the path to a Vikings win is exactly what happened last year. Is horrible things, mistakes, horrible play, missed field goals, missed opportunities, fumbles. All of those things are the way that the Minnesota Vikings win this game because if the 49ers don't do any of that, I don't think they stand much of a chance.
And even then, this is how difficult it is to beat the 49ers. They beat up on Kirk Cousins so bad that he tore his Achilles the next week, too.
Jeez. That got dark fast.
Well, it was Halloween. Wasn't it Halloween, too? There's a lot going on. There's some weirdness for sure.
So, look, I think the key to this one is obviously the defensive line, but I'm talking interior. Like, they've got to beat up on these guards and centers because they have two very good tackles. Darrisaw got the bag. Like, he's very good, right? And obviously O'Neal is very solid. But now we're talking about like the offensive side. We're talking about the offensive line more than anything. And I think this is gonna come down to all right. Here's how I want to explain it, Brian. The Jets have a better defensive line than the Minnesota Vikings. They have better talent, I think, depth-wise, especially if Hassan Reddick played. But I think the Minnesota Vikings present a bigger challenge for the offensive line because of what Brian Flores is about to throw in terms of exotic blitzes, trying to overload sides, make guys play fast and make decisions quickly. Pre-snap, it'll look like something. Post-snap, it's going to look like something different. So it's funny because Robert Saleh is a defensive head coach, and I absolutely agree that the Jets are a better overall defense, but I think this defense presents a different challenge for the 49ers because of who's calling the plays and what he's going to call. You're muted, I think.
There we go.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, they're just going to be active. They're not going to sit back and be like, man, you're better than us today. We can't stop you. That's going to be that, I think. They're going to come at you. They're going to do whatever they have to do to beat you. They're going to try to confuse you. And Brock Purdy is generally up for the challenge with that. And he's also really good with pressure. In fact, one of the best in the NFL against pressure. And so I think it's welcomed, but you just have to, not make big mistakes when you are pressured. You have to you have to see when they're disguising things, when they pull things back and be able to change that picture in your head. And I think Brock Purdy's good. He's up for that. He's seen this now before because Brock Purdy's been so good right away that he plays like a veteran. We feel like he's a veteran. We forget that he hasn't seen a lot. He hasn't been around the league. He hasn't seen every defensive coordinator.
Like that Giants game on Thursday Night Football, they blitzed him every single down.
Yeah. The entire every single time.
Right. Yeah.
And
so yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that as well too. But I think what Wink Martindale was trying to do just doesn't work. Like I have more faith in Brian Flores to disguise and be a little bit more exotic. This is going to be when we talk about Brock Purdy improvements, I don't think there's a way for him to improve statistically. The improvements will come in games like this. Identifying, understanding where it's coming from, shifting the line if you have that control, getting the ball out, throwing into blitzes, seeing a free rusher, not panicking. This is the incremental improvements we'll see, and it'll be a game like this where it'll be on display.
I totally agree. And yeah, it's with Brock Purdy, it's hard because his improvements are not going to be as easy to see. When you have a quarterback who, if Justin Fields could make decisions as quickly and get the ball out with timing like Brock Purdy, he'd be a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. But those are the things you think, okay, this is what a quarterback can improve on. Brock Purdy can't get bigger, faster, stronger. He's not going to start throwing the ball 65-yard air yards without being able to step into his throws. He's not going to be able to pull off an Anthony Richardson type throw. He's not going to do that. Right. And he's already good at the other stuff. So where are the improvements going to come from? It's going to be a little bit harder to see, and it's going to be in the margins a little bit. But for some of the other quarterbacks, it's really easy to see, like, where can you improve? This is the thing you're supposed to be able to improve at. Some of the stuff can be taught. Some of it can't be taught, but you see every single year and every single draft. And there's an entire mountain of lightly used quarterbacks that couldn't figure it out and couldn't do the stuff that Brock Purdy's already great at. And you have to be great at those things to be great.
Yeah. And just for reference, for anyone who didn't watch, and thank your lucky stars that you didn't have to watch Daniel Jones play football. According to PFF, the Minnesota Vikings, 26 pressures, 26. And that's including rookie Dallas Turner. You obviously have the pick 6 from Andrew Van Ginkel where, Jones just throws it into his arms. You guys, it kind of fell off the wayside, but Stephon Gilmore's over there as a veteran. There's some guys there, but looking up and down, you don't really look at this defense and say, wow, they're loaded defensively, talent-wise. But I do agree that Brian Flores is going to try to throw a bunch of stuff at them. But man, watching that game was tough.
Size up front, stopping the run, like that's tough. What was the scouting report on Van Ginkel? Because he's like a hero over. Like people talk about Van Ginkel like he's the next great player. I don't know what the deal is with him. Right. And Dallas Turner obviously has
the hair.
A ton of talent. I think it's just the hair. He's like everyone has that like underdog that they like to root for. Van Ginkel seems to be
like if you have long blonde like hair, everyone thinks you're Clay Matthews.
That's true. Yeah, they think they saw Clay Matthews wreck them for a decade. They think that's what they have now in Van Ginkel. Dallas Turner is a freak athlete, What do those guys look like? Like, what's the? Because on paper, I look at that team and I'm like, man, the Niners are going to destroy that defense. No Danielle Hunter. Like, what do they hang their hat on? So, is it just bringing pressure from super athletic guys like Dallas Turner? Is that their key?
Right. And I think what we're going to really get a glimpse of, and it was on full display, obviously, in week 1. The run defense is marginally, but not marginally. It's like miles better, in the first week, right? And I think the little things that you saw is they were getting killed in the postseason by Detroit and Green Bay with crack tosses and outside zones, and they're getting out there now. They're not just blindly running out there. Like they're setting edges and they're allowing guys to get through the gaps and finish. But Aaron Jones is absolutely an upgrade over Alexander Mattison. And you know what's hilarious about last year's game too? And it's just off the top of my head, and I could be tripping. If you want to fact check me real quick on here, because there's not a lot of fact checking going on in the real world. We got to do it in football only. Madison had that one run for 57 yards, and then I think he had like 12 carries for like 10 yards. So the 49ers run defense wasn't exactly like getting gashed in that game either, but it's the people who can attack them better. And I think Detroit has an obvious great running game, and Green Bay does as well too. Funny enough, Aaron Jones used to play for them. I'm looking forward to seeing this run defense do it again. Not that I think that Aaron Jones is better than Breece Hall, but I probably would say that right now the Vikings have a better chance at running the football against the 49ers than the Jets did on Monday night.
Can you put this comment from Scott on the screen? This is an interesting one. I like this. And by the way, 49ers throwback also says, Jason, why are we ignoring the fact that Kyle Shanahan has not fared well against Brian Flores? And then Scott says 3 Super Bowl teams are included in that 0-7 in Minnesota. We were favored in 5 of the 7. The curse is real, and it's the entire Midwest. Similar failure in Kansas City, Cleveland, Chicago, Green Bay. Jason, are the 49ers cursed in the Midwest? I didn't realize this conspiracy went deeper. Like, I'm learning a lot this week.
Hey, the only reason that I feel a little bit better about this is because we've routinely gone into Lambeau and whipped, them, especially when it matters in the playoffs. And I was there when Deebo Samuel saved the season with that that screen pass on Halloween from Jimmy, right before like Trey Lance was just warming up. Cleveland, I have no idea why they can't win. Actually, I do have an idea. Since we're talking about people that Kyle Shanahan doesn't fare well against, Jim Schwartz.
Schwartz for sure, yeah.
Kansas City, Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason for this to be as long as it's been for the 49ers to not win. In 92, the better team. I still have that. Like, when I start to think back of the games in Minnesota, you start back with Brett Favre throwing that pass to Greg Lewis at the back of the end zone. By the way, Brett Favre, give the money back. I will, every time your name is brought up, I'm going to say that. Just give the money back. Then you have the 2018 game, Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 interceptions. He throws that pass to Dante Pettis. George Kittle loses that ball in the lights, and they win that game. And then fast forward to last season and all that crazy stuff happens. Are they cursed, or is it that Prince is from Minnesota and he hated the 49ers?
Maybe it is the Prince curse. In the Chicago games were weird. Remember the one of the few games Trey Lance got to actually play the whole game. They lost to Trey Lance versus,
and it was in rain
in monsoon. And then there was the wind game. Remember the game where they couldn't even kick the ball? You couldn't throw the ball.
Or the snow game with Kaepernick where they had to bench him because they couldn't even do anything.
And then there was the Nathan Vasher 108-yard kick return. That was against the Niners, right? With the Bears.
Wait, and what was the Jimmy Ward pick 6 happened in Chicago, and then there was that walk-off one with Hoyer. He threw the game-winning touchdown to, I don't know if it was Garcon or somebody, where we walked them off in Chicago. I'm gonna look it up.
That had to be, wasn't that Jimmy? They didn't win any games without Jimmy in 2017.
No. I'm thinking of Blaine Gabbert's run up the middle in overtime or whatever to win the game. Yeah. I don't know why I said Hoyer, Gabbert, whatever. Gabbert, Hoyer, same thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God! See, we just went down memory lane with the Chicago games. I forgot that Blaine Gabbert. I can see Blaine. It was Blaine Gabbert and Torrey Smith in them, and Blaine Gabbert's running like down the middle of the field, and he wins the game in overtime. But yeah, it's this. there's no real rhyme or reason to why they can't beat Minnesota. And it's always like these weird things that happen in these games. And in 92, the 92 49ers are pretty good, by my recollection,
They're pretty darn good. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's strange. When they're good, they don't win. When they're bad, they don't win. But somehow it always just ends with they don't win.
And it's not weather because they got a dome in Minnesota, right?
They fixed that part too. Like they even made it easier and fixed that part. I mean, from what I hear, it's a beautiful stadium. But my God, man, let's get one?
I don't buy it, man. I don't buy the curse. I think it's just dumb luck. Weird stuff happens.
Right. I guess it's only if you believe in it type stuff. Like only if you believe in it, but history's history. History and things are meant to be broken though. But the only way to, some people will say the only way to predict the future is to look into the past. If that's the case, then we shouldn't even preview the Chiefs and Niners game, right?
Yeah.
We're just pissing everybody off today.
And I think the comment about Brian Flores is something because look, Steve Spagnuolo, he's a really good defensive coordinator, really good defensive mind. Jim Schwartz is a good defensive coordinator. Brian Flores is a good defensive coordinator. Is it harder to beat teams that are coached well? Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. I think a lot of teams are probably like, oh man, Kyle Shanahan, we have a curse against Kyle Shanahan. It's like, no, his teams are just better than you and they're well coached. And so you lose to his teams a lot, right? So I think that's probably the closest thing to it.
Man, Scott Broyles, last win in Kansas City, 1982. Last win in Cleveland, 1984. 3-9, last 12 in Green Bay. But those three were very important. Yeah. And wait. I think that's just regular season because I don't remember the 49ers losing in Lambeau for a long time. And it was that guy who still stole the money from Mississippi. It wasn't the guy the guy from who's the Jets quarterback.
Yeah, those were Favre days losses against Green Bay. Yeah. Regular season, the 49ers recently lost in Green Bay, but not in the playoffs.
CJ Beathard?
I don't remember.
I think it was the CJ Beathard game, the bomb to Marquise Goodwin. Kyle Shanahan wore the black Shanahan hat that year. And Matt Breida had a great game running the football, but we lost in the last few minutes. You remember that one? CJ Beathard. So Marquise Goodwin.
That was the one, yeah, because they won one game without Jimmy in 2017. Is that the one? Okay.
Well, they didn't beat them. I mean, the Packers won, but that was the game that CJ Beathard was packing them up, and he was doing really well. Like they looked good in that game. Okay. The Chicago thing, like I said, I was there for the Halloween game with Debo. Obviously the rain game, and then like we said, the Kaepernick game with snow. The wind game, like where the Nathan Vasher thing, like that, all that stuff is weird. So again, and I feel bad, Scott, because he's like, I live in Iowa and I go to all these games. I'm 0 for life, 0-12 with me in the.
I didn't see the end of it. I think we know what the curse is, and it's Scott.
Scott, don't do that. Don't do that. Look, I didn't say that.
Stay home.
Someone else similarly put that out. It's Zach Greer. He's a friend of mine or whatever on Twitter, and he's like, I haven't been every game that I've been to, they've lost, and he goes, I'm going to Minnesota, and I was like, it's cool. I've alerted 49ers security to make sure you don't get in. So we got to look. If I realize that I am the problem, because I thought I was for a while too, because I went to that home opener against the Packers in which Rodgers, I think that's like LaFleur's like only win besides the 2020 game, which that doesn't count, man. The whole team had COVID. I was there for that one. And then I went to the NFC title game in LA against the Rams, and they didn't win that one. And then I went to, I forget, another game. And I went to an Eagles game, they won, but I had never seen anything good in Levi's. And then finally I went last year to Tampa Bay and they won. So I was like, okay, whew, it's not me. Like, that's just football.
It's not you. Curses aren't real. They don't exist.
All right, Brian, 256 people in here, almost 45 minutes in. Make sure you guys are liked and subscribed to both channels. Obviously look out for Locked On 49ers at the end of Thursday Night Football. So considerate to let us enjoy our football, but we're going to be considerate now so we can get everybody into their football. Brian, Thursday, very early. I'm sure you're going to spoil it because you're going to talk about it on your show with Croc. I'm probably going to listen and watch too. What's your initial feeling and how we're feeling on this Thursday? Because we got to start getting into predictions pretty soon.
Oh, feel good. I feel good about week 2. I like the Dolphins tonight. I mean, Josh Allen has to be a superhero and score 4 touchdowns every game. I think
he might.
I'm a little out on the Bills this year as a total team, even though Josh Allen's a beast. And I just really like the program that Mike McDaniel's put together with the Dolphins. And I don't care if Mostert and Achane are playing or not, because you got Waddle.
Achane's playing.
Achane is playing. Okay, cool.
Achane is playing. He's good. He's a go.
There you go. So he'll catch the ball a few times out of the backfield, and little Jalen Wright, the 4th rounder that I think they traded up to get in front of the 49ers, by the way.
Old friend alert. JWJ. Stop playing with him. Jeff Wilson Jr.
Oh, Jeff Wilson Jr. He's the
Jeff Wilson Jr.
load tonight, I think. So give me Miami there, and give me the 49ers big.
Yeah.
I mean, multiple Sam Darnold. I think they're gonna put Sam Darnold in the spin cycle. He's gonna see a few ghosts, and the 49ers are gonna do what they need to on offense and end that curse. They're gonna end it. First win since 1992, 49ers win.
Hell yeah. And you might be surprised by this, but I am not afraid of the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold. I'm sorry. I have a similar sentiment from how I felt about this Jets game going into it. It's just, again, you may have improved. You may be okay, but you're not in this league. There's levels. We're up here. Look at you. Look at me. I don't see how the 49ers, unless they absolutely just fall flat on their face, which I don't think will happen.
Not one, but 2 cast off 49ers quarterbacks because he's backed up by Nick Mullins. Are we going to have a Nick Mullins sighting in this one?
Oh, I wish you had the soundboard. Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins. Yep. There it is. Yes.
Not even drafted.
Dude. No. All right. Look, I'm going to read this from Wolf Like Wild. Thank you for the donation, buddy. And I'm going to tell you a really funny story about that because I don't think anybody's heard, because that's a Giants fan doing that. Wolf Like Wild said, "What up, guys? This is Wolf. Hope all is great. Was Shanahan the one calling plays Monday again? Much love, not again." Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. Again, the reason that he allowed Kubiak to call plays in the postseason is because he wanted to listen to Sorensen's calls, and I think that is growth. GROWF is how you spell that. Growth. From Kyle Shanahan. All right. I got the 49ers winning big. I think you guys don't have to worry about it too much. But yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more, obviously. And make sure you check out Locked On 49ers for their extended thoughts. And we'll do Sprint Right Option tomorrow. We'll talk about this. But that soundbite. That is 2020. And I joined the 49ers content scene in 2019, the day of the Super Bowl. 2019, that Super Bowl, Rams Patriots. That's when I joined. So I'm a newbie, right? So I started all that out, and I wasn't on YouTube the first year. I literally was just writing for 49er Web Zone and just tweeting. Okay, 2020 comes along, and we're all in the house, and I remember someone sending me that clip of that crash out from that Giants fan, and I said, "Oh, this is too good because I live over here. I have to post it." So I post it. It gets traction on 49ers Twitter. Everybody runs with it. Okay. The guy who did the content, he's from Texas, by the way, and he's like a stone cold Giants fan. He follows me. I follow him back because I'm thinking, okay, you want to, he DMs me on Twitter because that's the only way you could DM me is if I follow you back or anything like that. And he says, and this is a kid's show, but, whatever, a family show, but I will. He says, "If you're going to use stolen content, you pussy, at least tag me." And proceeds to block me immediately. And I'm like, I was going to respond to him and be like, "Hey, man, I think we should do something with this. Should we have a live so you could talk about it?" Because that crash out is incredible.
Yeah, use that moment to your advantage.
Right. Yeah. But that guy was really, really bad. And that's it. Now, and then every time, that's what we did. We just cut the clip. And every time Nick did something good, Nick Mullins. It's the origin. It's just, he's like, "Such as Daniel Jones." I could see him going crazy. It's just dude, it's if my team causes you to crash out in that way, then that's even better than the win. I just feel like I won twice.
I can't. I just can't.
The accent too. He's like Southern.
He's from Texas,
but he's a Giants fan. It's pretty amazing. His whole he's good. He is intense. He's got these like these moments of just silence where he's just brooding, and he's like walking around the room. It's pretty amazing. It's cinema.
Yeah.
You got to check out this Johnson. I don't even know who he is or like what his name is or whatever.
Oh my God.
Only thing I've ever seen from him, but he's
his name is Copizzle. 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 Oh my God, he must have crashed out after game 1 against the Vikings as well too.
Man.
So I'm not promoting his show, but I think there is a lane for people like that because there are people that feel those same exact frustrations and they like to see it on the screen, right? Like sometimes being level-headed kind of backfires on you in instant reactions because people want to see you get upset with them. They want to see you be mad about the same things. And then maybe when you calm down tomorrow, you come around to like what really happened. But I think that's his lane.
Like Cowboys fans destroying their TVs or it just good content. And you can, it'll make its rounds. There's a lane for everything, and that's an angle that you can play with. And if that's your angle, man, then lean into it,
dude. So good. I'm so glad that you brought up Nick Mullins. That's so hilarious. But yeah, that's the origin of that story, man. That's so good. And I'm glad we brought it to you. So yeah, Brian and I have the 49ers winning. We're going to get you guys out of here so you can enjoy your football. 8:15 Eastern time, 5:15 on the West Coast because you guys just do football better than everybody in every part of the country. But, Brian, let them know what you got going on. I know you said about Locked On and all that stuff. Just tell them where they can find you and everything.
Yep. At BD Peacock on Twitter, Locked On 49ers Daily, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, breaking down the entire league with Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. We do that up on the Locked On Podcast Network as well, daily. And OT with BP, overtime, where you can find this simulcast and anything else I feel like doing with a little extra because I don't do enough content. You can find that there as well.
100%. Brian, thank you as always, man. We're going to try to figure out the schedule this week. We may do it a little bit earlier so we can do a review of the game. But if you guys like us just previewing the game, because I do think it is Thursday and everybody's kind of over the Jets game, let us know in the comments and let us know what you guys want, and we'll do whatever you guys want. Again, follow me on Twitter. Make sure you like and subscribe to both channels, and we'll be back next week. But as always, go Niners.
Yeah!
Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.